Joining me now, three of the best political analysts in the country, all CNN contributors, Republican strategist Ed Rollins. Ed served as White House political director under President Reagan, chaired the Mike Huckabee presidential campaign. New York Daily News columnist Errol Louis, also the host of WWRL's morning show in New York City. Democratic strategist Hank Sheinkopf. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. This past week, the president-elect started sounding, looking, and acting like the president rather than the president-elect, Hank.
Well, that's true. It's kind of been that George Bush hasn't been around for quite some time. Barack Obama's filled the vacuum, and the press likes it that way, Lou.
Well, the press may like it that way, but the press right now seems a little confused, and the Democratic Party is making it very clear it's going to be divided on even their Democratic president's agenda. What do you make of it?
Look, when you have that much control by one party, you invariably have a reform movement of some kind. It's happened to the Republicans constantly. It's happened to the Democrats. You're going to have more division because more people can't agree on more things at one time.
The idea that the Democratic Party, Errol, we've already got, for crying out loud, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, blustering that he doesn't work for Barack Obama. This is not exactly the beginning that many had anticipated, is it?
Well, I don't know what you anticipated, but the reality is this guy only a few weeks ago was a junior senator from Illinois. So these folks who've been around for a long time, who used to kind of tell them what to do and show them the ropes, they're not going to roll over. That's number one. Number two, this is going to look a little bit different, or really a lot different from the Bush presidency. This is a presidency and an administration.
From your lips to God's ears.
Look, it's an administration that's made up of legislators, the Secretary of State and Interior and Labor and the Vice President and the Chief of Staff. They're all former congressmen and women. So these are people who are used to the give and take.
Does that assure you, or does it concern you?
It tells me that we're going to have more give and take between the branches. I think that one of the problems that the Bush administration had was that they so tightly controlled the Republican agenda that in a way the system kind of broke down. You didn't have healthy dissent. Now we've definitely got dissent. It remains to see whether or not it will be healthy.
It becomes very important, though, that the president has a legislative package that's his package. The guy that puts that first draft down makes it happen. And if he doesn't have that and he doesn't get the Congress on board early to commit to give their ideas but commit to an overall program, what happens is the legislative staffers start their hearings, their appropriation, their authorization hearings. The Congress moves forward. And unless you write on big, bold letters, this is what I want, and it's clear, and they buy into it, you get nickel and dime to death, or billions and billions of dollars to death now. And so I think the key thing here is that because Brock's still got a lot of vagueness in his stimulus package, and the first package that Bush pushed forward failed so miserably, that I think people are starting to say, I'm going to look at other alternatives.
Yeah, one of the things that I think most people are so hopeful in the Obama presidency is that there would be straightforwardness, there would be transparency, there would be a direct connection between a problem and a solution. I think this past week Obama did a terrific, artful job of articulating the distrust that exists now between the people and government. I'm not convinced, however, that throwing everything at the government's in the government's resources at this economic crisis, the way it's been ambiguously laid out, is going to resonate with the American people. What do you think?
The American people will give Barack Obama a lot of room to maneuver. They believe some of the help has got to come from Washington. Most of it, they believe in economic stimulus. The amount of money, well, they're not sure about that either. But I'll tell you what they're really concerned is being out of work. And if Barack Obama seems to have the solution for the time being, they're going to say, go ahead, President, we'll give you some room.
The problem is, I don't think anybody stepped back, whether they're economists, whether they're politicians on either the left or the right, Republican or Democrat, and said just exactly what is the historical precedent and template here that we're following, and has it ever been successful? Just a cursory review of history says we've never seen this happen before. We haven't even had a single elected official in Washington, D.C., whether in the executive or the legislative branch, say, well, we've put up $8 trillion, we've pledged it, we've spent it, and we've loaned it, and this is what it's accomplished. That is remarkable.
It is remarkable. I think Obama's going to need more allies like Mayor Bloomberg, New York City. He was down there for the economic speech. He passed out, and to no fanfare. Nobody picked it up. I think they gave it to me because nobody else was interested in it. A 6-page description, short, succinct, of what this would mean for New York City. And I think that's the way Obama can sell this to the American people, that it's not something vague. It's not just even jobs in the abstract. It's a new hospital, 2 new police precincts, specific projects, wastewater treatment plants, things that we know in this city that we need. In other jurisdictions, I think it'll be the governors, it'll be the county executives that will help sell this program, because it'll turn it from something abstract, like a whole lot of money that just vanishes, into something real, something tangible in people's lives, in their neighborhood.
But the transparency becomes the key. We gave all this money to the banks. The banks didn't even say so much as thank you. No one's credit is working better out there. There's no loans being, people aren't getting money to buy cars. People don't have jobs to buy cars. And I think to a certain extent, there's sort of this great fear. And I think all the things you're talking about are important, except you got to say, all right, we're going to build this interstate highway, or we're going to do maintenance of this interstate highway. This is going to create 10,000 jobs. And these are good jobs that'll be there for a period of time. But to say everybody throw their list of the things that they didn't, it's sort of like all the old programs, let's put 100,000 cops on the street, and 2 years later, the money's not there for them anymore, and cities end up laying them off. I mean, there really has to be some priorities set, and there really has to be transparency, and this is what we get for it.
Yeah, again, the president-elect has been more forthcoming in saying there has to be an end to what has begun here than are the legislators in the Democratic Congress and the Senate, and many of the enthusiasts for greater government. Now, the Republicans had, in their wisdom, elected a president and put forward a president for election who called himself a compassionate conservative, who turned out to be an extraordinary liberal and, by his own acknowledgement, abandoned free market principles. We're watching far more here, are we not, than simply a response to a crisis. This is a change of direction for the United States government. It is a fundamental shift in the foundation and the aspiration of our economy and our politics. Hank?
Absolutely true, Lou. We have never seen this kind of government control of that many industries at one time, with continued government call, both within and without government, for even more money, which means ultimately control. Not very good for democracy, potentially the long term, but Barack Obama has a lot of room to maneuver. Why? Politicians are rational, Lou. They want to get reelected. Right now, he's popular. If the popularity continues, they won't lay many gloves on him. If not, look for a war.
And what other time in history, Errol, could we have seen any president or any political party like the Democrats in control of both houses have a better time to throw $1 trillion at places like New York City to build all sorts of projects? What are necessary in New York City may, however, in Alabama or California or Iowa be pork. This looks like a very problematic and troubling course that we're embarking on.
Well, I'm not troubled by it, because I think look, the rules change in this kind of a crisis. And that was one thing that we did learn during the last, I think, roughly analogous period, which is the 1930s, that all of the rules changed, that the 15 major pieces of legislation that Roosevelt passed in the first 100 days in the 1930s, nobody had ever seen anything like that. It caused a lot of turmoil, politically speaking. We know with the hindsight of history that, trying to make something happen was absolutely the right thing to do. And maybe you get it right, maybe you get it wrong, maybe you run up against political or even constitutional limitations. The important thing is to try. Roosevelt said that all the time. Obama, I think, is going to have to get people up to speed on the fact that we're in a similar period. We're going to have to do things that go far beyond, slapping at each other's pork projects.
Well, you're taking away a lot of sport at the same time. Thank you very much, Errol. We're going to be back with our panel in one moment. Stay with us. We're back with our panel. Ed Rollins, are the Republicans still a party in opposition, the loyal opposition? Are they going to have any ideas to offer in countervailing way to this?
They have a unique opportunity. I'm not sure they will be able to do it, but they have a unique opportunity to become a real opposition party. They have no part of the governing process for the first time really in 30 or 40 years. The whole idea that they can basically block some things in the Senate is absurd. John McCain may be the 60th vote. He may be the guy who votes with Barack Obama. If not, there's 2 or 3 other Republicans who certainly will give him. It's not going to be filibusters. So they really have an opportunity to basically say, listen, let us be the watchdog for your money, because at the end of the day, all these stimulus programs and everything are wonderful, but if they're wasting and someone has to pay for it, at the end of the day, you're going to pay for it, your kids are going to pay for it. When Bush came in, he had a $2 trillion national debt. We now have a $10 trillion national debt, and we're adding $2 or $3 trillion, almost every month now, in the sense of the new program. So
the Republicans don't really have no standing to say trust us with your money. I mean, they have squandered our wealth, they've squandered our government.
I don't disagree with anything. All I'm simply saying is You can't run on the past record because there's no past record, and it's one that I'm not even proud of as a Republican. I think what they have to do now is they have to basically look to a long-term, we are really going to become an opposition party, and we're going to stand up and continue to articulate things that we think are right, things that we think are wrong.
As a condition preceding to what Ed is prescribing, isn't it necessary that the Republicans come up with a new, original, innovative idea?
They don't have an ideology that works anymore. Completely discredited. The three things that made them: restore our defense integrity. Let's get America back to some kind of morality, and we'll rely on the capitalist system across the board. Don't work. They need to redefine that party before they can do anything.
And as Barack Obama said last week, the anything goes period in American history is over. However, in Washington, this is starting to look like anything goes in public policy. We'll see what the constraints turn out to be, and hopefully what many of the successes look like. Thank you very much, Ed. Appreciate it. Errol, Hank, thank you. Please join me on the radio Monday through Fridays for the Lou Dobbs.